We just saw our first lead come in for one of our clients from a ChatGPT referral, and I'm just itching to try to engineer back what was that citation? Where did it come from? And
you don't have to have a backlink, though. What you need is your brand to be mentioned. It could be mentioned in a video. It could be mentioned in the right context, hopefully in the right flavor. So I think a backlink is a subcategory of a citation, and I think it's citations that are important.
Kind of like having like a very confident friend. I mean, I think people need to think about these AI answer machines as like friends. Like you ask your friend, I'm having heartburn. One person will be like, yeah, you're fine. Just eat more, hamburgers. The other person may say, you're having a heart attack. Go to the emergency room right now. And they're very confident in their answers. I think that's what AIO reviews are kind of like.
96.5% of content never gets any traffic. And
that's money.
It's just some crazy numbers.
Search is dwindling. People are in other places, and AI overviews are everywhere. And also AI search is everywhere.
Well, welcome to SE Rankings, SEO Foresight 2025 online conference. And we're talking about navigating AI, Google updates, and search habits. I'm Aaron Sparks, host of Edge the Web and owner of Site Strategics and Edge Media Studios. I'm very honored to be able to be asked to moderate this conversation today. We're going to be speaking to some incredible talent in the search optimization space today. And I'm excited to actually watch their presentations. So after each presentation, we'll have a chance to be able to ask the presenter questions. We've got 3 presentations and a panel at the end of our conference today. With that, that's brief housekeeping. Let's get this conference rolling. Let's talk about who's on the panel, who's on the agenda today. So we're going to be talking to Peter Mead. He's going to be talking about the future of link building, sustainable strategies for 2025. We're also going to be talking to Sarah Tahir, the new SEO navigating the AIO and LLM revolution in search, and talking to Dixon Jones. He's going to be talking about mastering topical authority, how to become the go-to source in your niche for 2025, and an expert panel talking about the state of AI overviews in 2024, research insights and future forecasts with Barry Swartz, Itamar Blauer, and Anastasia Kotabinska. The future of link building, sustainable strategies for 2025 by Peter Mead. He's the head of SEO at Bring Performance. Peter, thanks for joining the conference today.
Thank you.
All that said, hey, you know what? I'm going to tee it up to you. Go ahead and take it away.
So my talk today is the future of link building, sustainable strategies for 2025. Link building is back in style, baby. I guess the question is that, did it ever really go out of style? Well, yes, it did, according to some. Maybe some people never gave up on it, but some people did get scared off. I know a lot of clients did. But we do know that there is with link building, there are certain risks that get carried with it. I mean, pretty fair to say that if I'm receiving link offers here in my inbox for $5 for a DA92 link, I'm not so sure whether I'm going to take that offer. But yes, we do need links, but we want these links sustainably. And so the sustainable strategy for 2025 is integrated digital PR. So just diving a little bit more about me, Peter Mead, I've been a long-time advocate and supporter of the SEO community, getting involved in lots of community events, meetups here in Melbourne, the Melbourne SEO meetup groups. In general, I'm just an old school SEO guy, passionate about ideas, and I just want to share my experience. And so what would a process? Well, I'm breaking this down into sort of 4 main areas: the research and strategy and development, content creation, optimization, outreach and amplification, analysis and iteration. So let's go to the first bit of this, which is the research and strategy development. So here's where we're defining the goals, aligning them with the audience's needs and behaviors. So I think there's a fair bit here, but I've been thinking about this stuff, personas, all the sort of content marketing side of things, which is typically outside of the realms of the SEO approach. But it's definitely worth it to go through that process of understanding who are the personas, who is your audience, who are your potential customers. Pick pick existing customer and work through that. And I mean, there's some tools here. There's a link here. You can go through to the HubSpot. There's plenty of ways of doing this sort of thing, but the more research, the better results you're going to see. The next stage here is the developing content that's optimized for search, highly shareable, and aligns with the PR goals. So this is the content development side of things. There's plenty of ways of doing this. SE Ranking has a great content marketing section in their tools. Surfer has also has the NLP stuff. So the NLP options. I mean, these tools are always helpful. They're great. At the end of the day, though, some of our people are just using Word docs. They're just writing articles because don't want to get too hung up on the SEO side of the article. Outreach is, this can go wrong, but we want to leverage the outreach to earn the backlinks, media coverage, and social engagement. It's not just about getting the links. It's the media coverage, the social engagement, the amplification. There's plenty of ways. There's plenty of tools for doing this. Help a reporter out. Of course, they're going away, getting shut down. I think Cision owns them, but Cision's a bit more of an expensive tool. There's plenty of other tools you can use, even things like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, Twitter. Just get onto Twitter and search for people. Often their contact details are there. And also, old school, go to Google, get a Google Sheet, and just start collecting details. Start small rather than plowing in. So the fourth step here is to measure the performance and refine the strategies based on the data and the insights. We want to improve. We want to look at how well did we do, what worked, and, this going back to this client again and looking into the results over the last 7 days for our client. We can see we had 73 new referring domains in the last 7 days. So there's a backlink checker in SE Ranking, which is really good, but you need to decide what the metrics are that are important to you for your, some people go by DR. Some people think DR's a load of not important. Anchor text, follow, no follow. I think relevance is the biggest, most important metric. Also, I want to see some referral traffic from some of these links. I just think if you're going to get a link just for the sake of the DR, it's on its own. It's not enough. It doesn't make that much sense. Yeah, there's all kinds of metrics that you need to figure out what it is for you that you consider it to be quality. And the other really important thing here is the team. This kind of project I'm talking about, obviously there's a fair few people in the team here, but when we're talking about, you might take this on as a smaller business, perhaps, you might only have a few people in your team. So you might split up some of these roles, like some of the SEO tasks. There might be one person doing them. You might have, content creator and a writer might be the same person, this kind of a thing. Whatever you decide to do, the takeaways here is I think it's important to remember that Google is in the business of dishing out penalties. If you've sort of seen anything that's been going on lately in the SEO world, you can see that Google goes after the biggest and the best. It's not shy. Just think of risk is what I think is important. But spend time on the research and the strategy. Create the highest quality content you can, because that will help you to attract links. The links will come much easier. Avoid the outreach spam. You want to make sure that your domain doesn't end up on some kind of a MX blacklist, or, your emails are all going in the spam folder. Iterate and analyze and iterate on the kinds of things that work, and build your team. So it takes a lot of effort, but above all, enjoy the process. It's a lot of fun. I'm happy to keep the conversation going. Let there be content and links. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. They got a number of questions already teeing up for you. Andrew said, Peter, as Google is increasingly emphasizing user content and entity-based search, how do you see link building evolving to prioritize meaningful connections over traditional metrics like domain authority, which you were already talking about, but that meaningful focus is the relevancy? What would you say to Andrew there?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for that question. I think definitely, Andrew, the best approach would be double down on all of the, as I said, I had the sort of trifecta there where it's the It's the digital PR and promotion. It's the content development, but it's also the technical SEO. And I think for me, what I'm really saying to people is work on all aspects of that.
Absolutely. Ethan Wallace has a question. Ethan actually said, thanks. Hey, with AI-generated content flooding the web, how should SEOs adapt their outreach tactics and ensure they're actually building quality links?
Yeah, great, Ethan.
Question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Some of those numbers, like 96.5% of content never gets any traffic, and
That's
there's just some crazy numbers. You're absolutely right. AI-generated content is flooding the web. Now, of course, we know that this can work, and there's plenty of people who have made just using all kinds of programmatic SEO approaches and winning and doing well, and hats off to them. It's great. But what I would say really would be the underlying approach here would be to work on the building PR. We want to be promoting the brand, so that at the end of the day, we want, Google loves brands. Google's kind of got a special place in their heart for brands. And so we want to win the heart of Google by promoting the brand. So I'd be thinking, the long game would be to sort of use that content marketing, use that digital PR, and work on getting that brand exposure in front of people alongside the link, and getting branded links and that kind of thing.
Excellent. And you spoke about the knowledge graph. Last year, there was kind of an explosion, like a 33% growth of the knowledge graph data vault, where it also opened up brands to a great deal, as well as other types of contributors. So that co-citation type of references, the different brand references are being valued even more in the knowledge graph space. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Even to the point of, help it along a little bit with your entity and your EAT and do some schema and help it along, and you can get some good results.
Absolutely. Another question from Natalie Ford to finish this off. How do you envision local SEO link building changing in 2025 as search engine results become more personalized and location focused?
Maybe one little takeaway would be, if you're a local business in your local neighborhood, maybe get involved in a local charity and, sponsor them and do something and get a link that way. This stuff still works, right? But if you're going to go and, directory, things like your citations are still really good thing to do, but get onto the quality directories, vet them. Don't get onto any spammy looking directory. The last thing you should do is be doing bulk directory submissions. I'd be just picking out, a good, maybe dozen of good quality directories to be submitting your NAP and your name, address, phone number, but work on obviously we're talking about Google Business Profile here. Of course, there's the Bing places, but when we talk about the Google Business Profile, work on optimizing that as the center of that, the descriptions, the services, the photos, update it with posts, keep it current. Make sure you're interacting with people who are leaving reviews. And, there's a whole strategy right there, but certainly local link building is not going away. But just again, don't be spammy.
Well, Peter, it's been a pleasure listening to you, and thank you so much for sharing what you shared at 2 a.m. in the morning. We certainly you kicking off this presentation, this conference today. So thanks so much. And everybody follow Peter on social, and your deck is going to be shared after the program as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Aaron.
Sarah, it's a pleasure to connect with you again. Thanks for coming on and for this presentation.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for having me today.
You're more than welcome, more than welcome. Well, tell the listeners and the watchers of the video a little bit about yourself.
I've been doing SEO for 10 years now. I've been speaking a lot. I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you're following me on LinkedIn, you've probably came across one of my SEO riddles. That's about it.
Well, you've been certainly participating over the last 10 years, and you're certainly giving a lot of great information in LinkedIn. So make sure you follow Sarah on LinkedIn. But at this time, I'm just going to hand it over to you. Go ahead and present to us what we're dealing with in the LLM arena.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Basically, we keep hearing a lot that SEO is changing. That's actually not true. SEO has changed already. This is our traditional way of doing SEO, right? We are focused on Google and the 10 blue links. We have heavily checklisted workflows for everything. And optimizing basically means we're checking as much items off our checklists, following all best practices. And then we also heavily rely on SEO tools for our data insights, analysis, and so on. Our focus is on three things or three areas: the technical, the on-page, and off-page. That's the classical focus. And the tools and the data we use, as I said, traditional SEO tools and the traditional data we have, like GA4, Google Search Console, off-the-shelf crawlers, tools that are ready for us to do a specific task, obviously Google Sheets. Here's the thing. There is a tornado and things have changed a lot. We have the API leaks and Department of Justice documents. They have revealed so much to us, LLMs and RAG. RAG is like retrieval augmented generation, which is basically retrieving the documents and then generating based off that document, which makes process more grounded in facts. So an AI overviews we're not sure 100%, but it's probably using RAG. So we also have the AI overviews in search now. And we have also the user that their behavior changed. So users' behavior changed in the way they search. They don't necessarily start their search at Google anymore. Maybe they discover a product on TikTok or on Facebook or somewhere else, right? And then the type of content they also consume, it's no longer blogs, or this is not what they expect or only want when they go to Google or any other place. So there's a lot going on. A lot of that is because of AI, right? A lot of things are changing and have changed, and we need to adapt. What does that mean? How does the new SEO look like? So we're no longer just focused on Google. We're also focused on LLMs, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Quora. Anything that's taking a space in the search results, any platform, should be part of your SEO strategy. It's no longer about your website and competitors' websites. We're talking about other platforms that you also need to incorporate into your SEO strategy. Yes, we do still need checklists, but we also need to make sure that our processes are agile. What do I mean by that? We need to be able to try new things, adapt quickly in a balanced way, which I'm going to discuss at the end. But there has to be some wiggle room. Don't have those solid strategies or solid checklists where this is the only way you operate across all clients, across their search results, whatever there is. Optimizing, yes, it means following best practices, but it also means testing things out and see what will work for you. Again, I'm going to touch on this later on with the custom click through rate curve. And then just something to remember that a best practice or any tactic, the more it is used, the less impactful it becomes, right? And that's why you need to test things out and get your own insights for your own business, right? We're going to use the SEO tools, obviously, for keyword research and so on, but we also need to make our own tools. And this doesn't have to be very complicated or anything. Again, I'm going to discuss this briefly later. The new buckets, we still have the three main focus areas: technical, on-page, and off-page, but we also now have CRO, user experience. We have discovered from Department of Justice documents and from the API leaks that user behavior is important. It is the magic behind Google search. And then data analysis, it's no longer just what the tool is telling you and those high level insights. Now you need to do your own data analysis and sometimes come up with even a new matrix. And then automation, obviously, if you're not automating, you're missing out. Testing, as I said, it's essential part of what you do. Last but not least, the tools and data, we're still going to use the traditional SEO tools, but then we need, as I said, custom DIY tools for data analysis and automation. LLMs, you'll be surprised how many people do not use LLMs in their day-to-day. I'm not sure when is more people should be doing that, should be using LLMs in their day-to-day. However, we should also know very well when to use LLMs and what for, and not just use them for everything, of course. I'm going to touch on that a bit later. And then some of the tools we should introduce to our traditional tech stack, some of the tools that should be normal for us to use, stuff like Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar, or Lucky Orange. Microsoft Clarity is free, which is surprising, probably collecting data. Anyway, so these tools will help you analyze user behavior on a page and therefore make optimizations that would help you rank better. Let's look at that a bit more in details. So our old playbook is like the Titanic. It's sunk. Okay, here's the quote from Michael King. I really like it. Search as we know it has been irrevocably changed by generative AI. It's changed. Our old ways are not effective anymore or are not enough anymore. We need to update our processes, update our mindset. So let's talk about user experience. Okay, so user experience definitely changed the way we look at SEO. So Department of Justice documents and the API leaks both pointed to many things that show that user behavior on search in the SERPs and on the page itself matter and would impact your ranking, right? Some of these things have been actually said long time ago by people like Rand Fishkin, but a lot of people would push back and didn't believe this. Now we know these as fact. So Google doesn't understand the documents. Google imitates the behavior of understanding. So Google's challenge is basically trying to tell you, like you're ordering a cake and Google's trying to serve you the best cake without actually tasting the cake. So how it's going to guess which cake is better? Maybe, okay, the color, does it have fruits on top? Like the size, the weight, and then it's going to serve it to you and take your feedback, store that and learn the next time it serves to the other user and so on, and collect all of this aggregate data and make a decision on, okay, this cake is more popular than that cake. Therefore, this cake probably tastes better, right? Without tasting the cake, it's a challenge for Google, of course. So user behavior is essential. And some of the things that were uncovered, things like nav boost and glue. So nav boost is basically how users behave. They specifically click on results in search, right? And things like short clicks and long clicks, which is basically if a user clicks on the result, goes to your page and then bounces back quickly, or do they spend more time? Yes, we have heard over and over the bounce rate is not a ranking factor. Maybe the measurement here is not called bounce rate. Maybe it's called something else. Maybe the way they measure it is a bit different than the way bounce rate is measured. However, the concept is right. The amount of time a user spends on a page is important. We've learned that Google uses Chrome data and clickstream data to determine overall site quality by looking at user behavior. So all of these things show us that user behavior are very, very important. Probably the most important factor when it comes to ranking. Think of ranking as three things: the document itself, the content, what it says about itself, the backlink profile or the authority of that document, what other people are saying, and then how the user interacts with that document. So this is the most important element of ranking, generally speaking. So, okay, the next question would be, hey, Sarah, what should we do about this? Okay, I have this example from Erica and I love it. So what did Erica do? Erica basically used Microsoft Clarity to analyze the behavior of users on a page. And she noticed that they scroll to like when users land on a page, they usually scroll to a specific section of a page or use the table of content to jump to a specific section. So all she did literally was restructure the content and push the content that users look for to be more at the start of the content versus having it at the bottom. And within 2 weeks, she has seen 50% increase in traffic. This is big. She had not done any other changes. Just by looking at the behavior of users on the page, she was able to improve the traffic to the page. So why are we not doing this? Why is this not part of our SEO audits and SEO work? We need to have access to those tools and we need to analyze the behavior of the user on the pages as part of our, if you want to call it, on page, or ideally it's a separate bucket of an audit itself, the user experience. Another thing is CTR manipulation. CTR manipulation basically at a high level is when you get bots to imitate user behavior on a search result and specifically click on a result with the intention of manipulating its rankings. So as we said, user behavior in the search result is important. Result they click on is going to impact its ranking. So there is 2 case studies on CTR manipulation. It's something spammy. I do not recommend, of course, doing this. We're just going through those case studies to learn from them the value of CTR. So basically, one website with CTR manipulation actually moved from 34th to 10th position in 22 days without doing anything else other than CTR manipulation. It's also like shared by some SEOs that one of the ways to recover from helpful content update is CTR manipulation. Again, I'm not saying or suggesting you should do this. I'm just telling you the power of having a lot of clicks in search. And this actually aligns with the Department of Justice documents and the Google API leaks. Remember the cake example? Let's say people are picking a specific cake every time. Google will realize this is the most popular cake. If someone comes and asks for a cake, they're probably going to serve this first, right? The thing is, we thought if we improve rankings, we will improve our CTR, right? That's the entire thing. We want to go up in search because the higher we are, the higher CTR we are. But what if it's the other way around, actually? The better our CTR, the higher we go up in search. So this small graph you see here is based off the data from AWR, and it shows the estimated CTR for each location in search, starting position 1 to position 10. However, I searched for what is SEO. This is the numbers for the top 10 results. They're all long form content and they all are directly talking about what is SEO. But if you look at the traffic each page is getting, and this is the traffic for all the keywords related to the topic, not just what is SEO, you'll see that surprisingly, the first result is not getting the most or the highest number of clicks. The third result is actually getting the highest clicks, right? And the fifth is getting the third highest number of clicks. So what does that tell us? It tells us two things. If you go to the first place, you may still not get the highest number of clicks. And it also says that CTR will take you up in rankings, but there are other factors. And this is why, even though a page is getting the highest number of clicks, it's still not at the position 1, right? Okay, what to do about CTR? Test different pages, page titles, run those tests. I've left a lot of links throughout this deck to get into the specifics of things. Something that we need to not discuss anymore is whether or not user behavior matter. It matters. The question is, how do we deal with this? Okay. Second thing is, SEO isn't just about Google anymore. If any platform is ranking in search, then it should be part of your strategy. Okay. So there's a lot of search engines and a lot of other platforms. So if you look at this chart, for example, Google is the most traffic referrer on the web. However, DuckDuckGo is as well the second. So why not also look at how we're doing in DuckDuckGo and monitor our performance there? Because maybe we have a higher chance on ranking for a specific term on that search engine versus Google. And another thing is, in the era of zero clicks, which is basically people seeing the results in search, or maybe they go to a platform, see the result and leave, right? And a platform, I mean, not your website, Twitter, right? Facebook, Reddit, LinkedIn, all of these things. We need to run a tight ship. We need to make sure we're optimizing our SERPs, our CTR and SERPs, and we're optimizing our conversion rate to make sure that every click that comes to our website, it counts. And then we also need to work with the social media people to leverage all those other platforms in a white hat, non-spammy way. Just to be clear, I'm not promoting spam. Again, I'll repeat this again. If any platform is appearing in SERPs, it's now part of your strategy. We will leave no stone unturned. So something else in addition to this, Google likes video because users like video, right? So image is the second largest search engine, and then YouTube or videos, generally speaking, are very popular, and YouTube is the third largest search engine. And in a recent study by Rand Fishkin, YouTube keywords, branded keywords, are the most searched brand keywords on Google. So if you're not there, you're definitely missing out. It has not been any easier to create videos with AI right now. And the same way we recommend blogs, we should try to promote for video production. And I understand that's a blocker for some businesses. They don't create videos. But another thing you can look into, and I usually do if I'm working with a client, is if they have existing video assets on YouTube, let's optimize those and let's pull all the videos of their competitors and analyze those and see what we can learn from there. Remember why video is important. It ranks on Google SERPs, and then it ranks in the video filter on Google, and then you will also have a chance to rank on YouTube. So it's 3 areas, right? Versus your blog is mainly for Google. So the question is, are you auditing your client's YouTube channel and their competitors as part of your strategy? You should, because there's a lot of optimizations opportunities there. If you ask, okay, how should I optimize video for search and for ranking and to get more traffic? That's what you need to work on and create your own checklist, right? Okay, something very interesting I came across. Perplexity is pulling answers from inside a video. So I searched for no makeup, and then I found this, it's exactly pulling this segment of the answer is being pulled from a YouTube video, which is very interesting. That shows you how much this is important. If you're not on YouTube, if you don't have video content, you're missing out big time. So tell me again why video is not part of your content recommendations, right? And as I said, I understand that there may be pushback from businesses because it's not easy to create videos. It is easier today than it used to be in the past. That's one thing. And then the second thing, you can go for more creative ideas like those whiteboard animation videos or whatever. It says an area you should explore. I know it's not easy to get buy-in for that, but as I said, don't leave a stone unturned. And our role as SEOs is to give recommendations. In the same time, in a perfect world, if we have everything we want, this is one thing we would ask for. Okay, so FYI, in AI overviews, the most frequently linked URL was YouTube. Again, if we're having trouble with all this AI tornado coming our way, YouTube, again, is one of the most frequently linked URL. Let that sink in. And then another platform we should look into, or platforms, ChatGPT and LLMs, of course. So in search to rank in Google, we're talking about keywords. In LLMs, the currency is different. Again, Rand Fishkin has a lot of cool stuff there. The currency of LLMs is mentions across training data. This is why this made me pause, why people want to block LLMs from crawling their websites. If you block LLMs from crawling your website, you're not going to be cited there. It's not about, I don't want them to take my information. They're going to get it from somewhere else and cite someone else, right? So this is something you need to think about. One thing, you know how we talk about internal linking? Now we have internal brand mentions. I've seen blogs, for example, where they discuss a topic and they don't mention the brand within the blog, heavily relying on the branding of the website. You have the logo, you have the navigation, you have it's obvious what brand this is, but is your brand mentioned in the content where it should be? So that's something to think of. Again, don't do this in a spammy way. So we were talking about keyword stuffing. Now we don't want to switch that to brand stuffing. Don't do that. But just make sure that, it's generally speaking a good practice to link to your products, for example, in blogs where it's relevant, right? And it's also part of CRO and increasing your engagement on a page. So everything is connected together. And then brand mentions generally and in training data are the new backlinks, right? So let's take Reddit, for example. We don't like Reddit because it's taking so much real estate on Google, but it's also making up 4% of the training data for GPT-3, for example, but it has 22% of weight or influence. Do you know how often your brand is mentioned on Reddit? What type of mentions is it there? Are people complaining about your brand? Are people asking questions? You need to have some legitimate presence on Reddit as a brand, not in a spammy way. We're going to touch on this a bit more. So something to think of, right? You need to audit site operator Reddit and search for your brand, right? You need to see, this is training data. You need to be there and you need to be there in the right way. Another thing is pull PAA data from search for your main keyword and put them into ChatGPT, analyze the answers and see, okay, let's say best agencies in Toronto, and then you plug this in ChatGPT and you get the results. Look at the brand mentions of those brands, the brands that ChatGPT came back with, and where they're mentioned, where they're getting links, and see if you can get the same for yourself. And this is where something like automation would come in handy, because you don't want to do this manually, right? You want to plug in a list of PAAs, push them to ChatGPT, pull it back with the answers and analyze this automatically. So this is something that can actually be automated. And that's why I'm saying we need to have our own tools, DIY tools, because if we rely on existing tools, we are heavily limiting ourselves. So this example from Chris Long, it's really, really good. So Chris said they've noticed that at Go Fish Digital, they're starting to get business from referrals from ChatGPT. They went and did search for the digital PR agency there and noticed that ChatGPT is listing some agencies and their agency is there, but other agencies have more information, which is basically notable clients that they don't have. That was okay, obviously they want to look good in those results as well. So they went back to their website, found an article that they know that ChatGPT is citing regularly and added a section about notable clients there. And what happened is that within a week, the ChatGPT answer for their agency included the notable client. So yes, you can influence ChatGPT answers, and you should actually make sure that if you're appearing there, you're improving your potential to get referrals. If you're not appearing there, fix that. So this is something part of the new era of SEO. It's, as I said, it's no longer just about Google or just about blogs. You have video content, you have ChatGPT, and so on, and other platforms. And AI overviews, everyone is complaining, 0 clicks, or we're not gonna, it's gonna take away our clicks and so on. I see it as an opportunity versus a threat if you understand how it works. So we think it's like keyword, AI overviews pulls the direct match document of this keyword and then generates the AI overview, which is not the case. So AI overview is a system that doesn't select search results based on one specific query. It can extend to related keywords, recent keywords, implied keywords. So it has a lot of other ways of selecting documents, right? It does not necessarily select the top 10 results, as we all know. So this is an opportunity because you can be ranking on second or third page, but you're still appearing in AI overviews. And this also tells us that the pages ranking in the top 10 are not necessarily the best pages in terms of content. If AI overviews is typing pages on URLs on page 3 versus a result in page 1, that means this one actually has better content. And the reason those pages are ranking on page 1, even though they're not cited in AI overviews, are other factors than just the helpfulness of the content, maybe authority or CTR. People like that result. That means also skyscraper, where you pull the top 10 results and rewrite them, is not really a good idea to appear in AI overviews. And it's not a good idea anymore. You want to have something unique. You want to have something different. So if the top results lack diversity, it can extend its search beyond that. And something that has been shown as well, that there's a direct relation, or there's a relation, and it's debatable. This is debatable. However, there's a relation between the appearance of featured snippets and AI overviews, and there's some overlap. So if you try to go, and featured snippets are used as an AI system, by the way. So if you try to appear in featured snippets, maybe that would help you get in AI overviews as well. Something to think of. This is something that needs also to be part of your strategy. How are you going after AI overviews? How you understand why as a URL that's ranking in the first page, not linked to in the AI overviews. That's because simply the ranking on the first page is not just about the content, contrary to popular belief. And then hacks may work, and we will come across a lot of hacks, and the more they are used, the less effective they become. So here Cyrus came up with a mini case study, and I find it very interesting. He had a page that's ranking on the first page, and he wanted to get it cited in AI overviews. So he took the answer to that question or that keyword and from AI overviews and written something that's similar to it on that page, right? And he was in the top 10, so he got cited in the AI overviews. However, he did lose the rich snippet. And yeah, that's a hack, of course. You can try it. However, as I said, the more we try these things, the less effective they are. This is not a sustainable strategy. It may work for now, but not on the long run. Okay, user-generated content. It's a bit of a challenge, and we complain a lot about Reddit, Quora. Recently, I've seen random posts actually from Facebook groups, and sometimes just a Facebook group. So being linked to in search. And it's time we don't look at these as, social media platforms, it's out of our scope. They are in our scope now because they appear in search. So we need to think of these as microsites. You need to have some presence there, cooperate with the social media team. You need to have some presence there. If there's a group that's ranking, maybe you need to have some presence there with legitimate brand content, good quality, and exist there on Reddit as well. Maybe you want to pull all the PAAs from search. So yes, when we're optimizing content, maybe there's 20 or 50 PAAs in search about your topic, and you don't want to include all of these in your blog. Okay, why not take some of those and create some posts on Reddit about them and answer them as a brand, right? So think of user-generated content or social media platforms as microsites. Again, this needs to be a collaboration between social media teams, but if you look at the screenshot, this is the search results for Tesla Cybertruck. The last thing I would expect to see there is just a Facebook group link for a Cybertruck. I'm not sure, is this the most helpful? But apparently this is what people want. So this is where you should be, right? If you want to, if you're selling, if you're a reseller or whatever, maybe you want to be there providing helpful content, not necessarily huge, social media posts don't have to be long or anything. And you can mention your brand as well. All of these things are definitely helpful. No one knows all the answers right now. However, it's worth looking into and testing. I stumbled upon this accidentally, and Rick Steve Europe, this website is, in my opinion, a perfect brand. It's well established. If you search for who is Rick Steve on any LLM, they'll tell you that he's like a American travel entrepreneur. He's very well established. Why? He has all types of content, a shop as well there. He has blogs for tips. He has a forum, which is really interesting. I love that. And I in a perfect world, a forum is a community, right? And in a perfect world, you want to build a community around your brand. Obviously, that's not possible, but some brands can do that, right? And then they have content to watch. They have videos and they have podcasts. So in a perfect world, you want to be like Rick Steves. I understand there are blockers like resources or getting buy-in, but also remember that if you come with a recommendation, maybe you can give the stakeholders some ideas on how to create these things. So, for example, you can use Notebook LM today to create a podcast on a blog that you have, right? Like, it's never been easier to create podcasts or videos based off your blog. And the concept of create once, distribute forever, this is definitely worth exploring. So I highly recommend you have a look at this website. It's very basic in terms of design. However, it's very well established because it has a very strong brand, and brand is also very important to us. Okay, given all the stuff that we have just mentioned, the new tools and data. So reminder, we are all collectively using the same tools and data as everyone else. There's no competitive edge here. If you're doing keyword research for best running shoes, your competitor are also doing keyword research for best running shoes, and they're using, there are a few tools or specific tools out there. They're probably using one of them. Same tools, same data. There's no competitive edge there. And as I said, the more we use something, the less impactful it is. If we're all building our strategies on the top of the same data, using the same tools, there's no advantage there. How can you win if you're doing the same thing? This means we need new data, or we need new metrics, and we need our own custom tools, okay, to have a unique edge. What new metrics? Okay, so first of all, there are existing metrics that we didn't use when we're reporting or analyzing SEO. Things like in GA4, for example, engagement rate, bounce rate, conversion rate, all of these things, time on page or dwell time, all of these things we need to look at and start analyzing because they matter when we're talking about ranking and improving, getting more traffic in this era, right? CTR. I think it's time we focus or shift the conversation from talking about ranking to CTR. And in 1 minute, I'm going to show you an example why. Focusing on improving CTR is gonna make you think differently than just improving rankings. As I said, you can improve rankings and still not get that much traffic. And sometimes the effort to move from the 5th position to the 1st position is not worth the amount of traffic you're gonna get. It's like really small, and the effort and cost is gonna be so high. So you wanna work on improving your CTR. And then we also need to start monitoring AI overviews visibility. There is you can use this tool in SE ranking, brand visibility. I don't know why, but I've seen so many marketers, don't divide traffic by branded versus non-branded when they're reporting. I can't explain how important this is. And just remember that branded traffic can be a result of SEO or it can be a result of other channels. So there's a lot of moving parts. You need to make this distinction to be able to have a clear view of what is working and your actual performance. One more thing I don't want to skip, how PPC and SEO work together. Something for you to keep in mind. There's all this myth circulating that, for example, PPC shouldn't bid on brand words because SEO capture it. Actually, studies shown that if you're running a PPC ad and you're ranking in the search, your overall CTR is higher than if you have one or the other individually. Anyways, back to brand visibility. You need to monitor organic referrals from social. You need to the traffic from LLMs, share of voice, and then comparing your visibility with the competitors. Impressions are also important because the more people see you in search, the more brand aware they become. So impressions is an important metric if we're talking about awareness. If you're running an awareness campaign in SEO, if you're a new brand and you want to establish yourself, impressions is a good metric to look at. Okay. And then new metrics that you make yourself based on what you want to measure. So for example, one of the things I measure is content push. That's how I call it. I know other people may have different names for it, which is the average number of clicks per page, right? The purpose of this is you want to see, okay, on average, if I create a new blog today, how many, without doing any optimization, following the exact process we have been following so far, how many clicks would we get on average? And then you would be surprised, sometimes 50 clicks per month per page, which is not a good number. So this is where you can get buy-in. Hey, we need to optimize this. We need to improve our content push, right? And then percentage of dead weight pages. You need to have an understanding of how many pages that are dead weight. You're just a burden. You're just moving around with a burden on your shoulders. So this is an example for a small client I did in the past. Total number of URLs that get 100 or less impressions. This can be your definition. You can say, no, I'm going to go for 1,000 impressions. I'm going to go for 1,000 impressions in the last 6 months, not 12. I went for 12 months because I wanted like a full cycle of all the seasonality and everything. So this is the total number of URLs that got 100 or less impressions. Maybe you want to go after clicks, right? Total number of URLs considered, and then you calculate the dead weight pages on the website. And this is one of the most powerful way to get buy-in for your content strategy, because you're basically going to tell them, this is the content you're creating, and 55% of this did not see the light, at least, because if you change the threshold of 100, this number will increase. So you're telling them 55% or more of your content has not seen the light of day in the last 12 months. Okay, these three metrics, that the ones I'm about to discuss, they're not mine. They're by a guy named Jason Bowman. I have seen it not this year, last year in Toronto IRL, and they stuck with me. They're very interesting. Traffic velocity, organic traffic over website age, and then keyword velocity, number of keywords over website age, backlink velocity, number of backlinks over website age, and website age starts by when the time your pages start to get indexed, right? All of these things, and you may come up with your own matrix depending on what you're trying to measure, but relying just on keyword difficulty, search volume, that's not enough anymore. More on this, I really like this example here. So we need also to track AI-driven traffic and use this data as directional. It's not 100% accurate. We understand that. I linked to the tweet and the tutorial here. Take this as directional. So what happened here is, in this example, he looked at the landing pages Perplexity is sending to the website via GA4. Okay, this page is getting traffic from Perplexity. What type of questions are on this page? And they go back to Perplexity and search for those questions, and they found their articles ranking there. And this can give you an insight how you're ranking, how you can improve that. Why is something else being cited before you and you're not, right? So this is really good because, and also what structure or type of content or paragraph format that Perplexity is pulling from. So getting this granular and looking at those things and doing those measurements, it's not part of our usual process, but they need to be. New tools. Okay. Before I go on rambling here, if you look at this graph is for my website. I analyzed my CTR across the results, and I'm getting the highest number of clicks when I'm ranking between 5 and 6 position, right? So contrary to popular belief, if you analyze your own CTR, and I've did this using Python, and this is why I'm saying you need to build your own tools. This is one thing I built. If you analyze your own numbers, the average or the established data may not be, it's different than your average or your own data, right? And again, that's one reason why you should shift your focus from rankings to CTR. New tools, as I said, the IOI tools to automate your workflows. For example, you can create meta descriptions in bulk, or if you're doing a programmatic SEO, that would be very helpful. If you write good prompts that are customized, definitely gonna help you. And then data analysis like this custom click curve. But then we also want to use existing tools that are not traditionally part of our SEO stack, like Microsoft Clarity. Make sure we're using ChatGPT and LLMs the right way. For you to know, there are LLMs specialized. So for coding, for example, yes, you can use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, but you can also look for coding LLMs specifically designed to help you code, for example. So whatever you're working on, try to find if there's a specialized LLM for it, or you can just use ChatGPT. As I said, a lot of people don't use them enough yet. you're as good as your prompt. If you are trying to generate whatever you're trying to generate, you're as good as your prompt. Avoid using, learn from other people's prompts, but don't necessarily use the same prompt. And then when it's good to use, so there's this recent experiment or thing that has been run by Ahrefs, the SEMO and BB, where they were judging Ryan. They had two people, Ryan and another person. Ryan has 14 years experience in marketing and the other person is a newbie, and they were using ChatGPT for challenges. And Semo and BB were judging. I have a link for the video here, which output is better. And what you will learn from this is ChatGPT is good when there's a lot of ambiguity. For example, PPC copy, but not for a blog post or social media post. It's not going to look good, but PPC copy is really small. It needs to be very precise. Definitely go for it. And when there is a lot of ambiguity in the input, like you don't have enough data to come up with a concept, maybe you can go to ChatGPT and see what it has to say. Just make sure that it doesn't limit your thinking, right? So to wrap this up, what we know for sure so far, no one has all the answers. The only right answer is to be agile, be open to new ideas, test fast, be okay with failing because you will. Incorporate other strategies in your other platforms in your strategy. Brands connect everything. User experience has to be part of your strategy. Always be analyzing, always be testing. But remember, the more a tactic is used, the less effective it becomes. Yes, the last but not least, don't take radical measures. Don't say, hey, I'm going to block LLMs from accessing my website. I'm going to drop using schema. Don't just take those radical measurements yet, right? Without really thinking things through. And don't be casual with learning. Things are changing. This means you need to dedicate time and have a structured way of learning what's happening and to think even what you should be doing about all this. And that's it. I've been rambling for a while, so maybe I should take some questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was a wealth of information, that presentation, and we're certainly going to have that deck shared as well. We have a couple questions. We do have a bit of a time wedge here, though I do want to bring up one recent question from Stephen, Mr. SOS Solidimi. He actually asks, pretty much impossible to focus on all the points when working with smaller brands and smaller resources. What would your advice be to focus on for the best results when we're talking about LLMs and visibility in these new spaces?
So small brands actually have an advantage of being able to move fast, right? Don't think that just because someone is a bigger brand and they may have much more resources, which, by the way, not necessarily the case, they will always win you. It's not the case because you are able to be more agile and experiment with things faster. So you have an edge there. Where to focus? There are things you can focus on that won't cost you a lot. As I said, Microsoft Clarity is free. You're going to compensate with more effort if you don't have the resources. So the less resources you have, you're going to do more effort to make up for that.
All right. Very good. Very good. Thank you. One more question, and then we'll finish up. What are some tools in the market that can help optimize SEO for LLMs? Baronaut Kelman says.
Okay. I wouldn't say there's a specific tool yet, but I think this is the tool that would help you to do that. There's a lot of manual work you'll have to do yourself. You need to dig into use LLMs and search and see what's happening there and analyze on your own. I don't think there's something that's doing that yet.
Yeah, and you gave an example of researching GA4 to be able to see citation references and referrals, but that's almost reverse engineering. You really can't dig into ChatGPT to be able to see all the citations that you have, so you really have to reverse engineer from the questions that are answered on the pages to then be able to see what's really populating in the LLMs right now. Is that correct?
Yep, of course.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Like I said, a wealth of information, and I'm certainly going to dig into there and see a lot of the links and sources that you put there. So thank you very much for your time today, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for having me today.
And we're talking about mastering topical authority, how to become the go-to source in your niche for 2025. Hey, this is Dixon Jones. He's the CEO of NLinks. Welcome, Dixon.
Hello, Erin. Hello, everybody.
You're the man, the myth. It's great to be able to connect with you again, Dixon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Erin, and thanks for having me search engine ranking as well. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dixon, can you tell us, our listeners, our watchers, a little bit about your history?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to go into it a little bit about my murky past in the presentation itself. But most people know me in my past as being marketing director of Majestic. I, before that, founded an agency called Receptional, which is still going today. I'm not involved in it, sadly. I was at an award ceremony last time. They're still winning an award, so that was good. And then the CEO of Inlinks, which is an entity-based SEO technology, and it's kind of like the new kid on the block, really, in terms of approaching SEO.
Absolutely. We're huge fans of Inlinks over here at Edge and Site Strategics, as you well know. Thank you so much for what you've been doing on that front. Hey, I'm going to give you the mic. Go ahead and give us a presentation with the hat.
I'm going to be talking about what makes you a master of a topic. Clearly, PowerPoint is not my mastery, but I'm going to be talking about how you determine when you've covered a topic enough in your internet presence versus when you're beating a topic to death. And I think it's a very difficult thing to get right. One of the things about me is that I'm old. I just turned 60 literally last week. And one of the things about being old is that you have the perspective of time when you're trying to look at your marketing. You've got the advantage of a lot of years behind you. So I've been 24 years in search engine optimization, 10 years before that writing content. So 35 years, really. And the content that I used to write was in 1989 to 1999 was writing murder mystery evenings for a living. So that's kind of what I did. And that was my niche before the internet came along. And it's an interesting story about how you connect ideas when you write murder mysteries. And it plays to what I want to talk about today. Because the content as I wrote as murder mysteries really connects thoughts and connects ideas, and they have to in order for people to solve plots. And so I find it quite an interesting transition for me, and it's going to play into the talk that we did today. But one of the things that I've learned from this perspective of time is that on the whole, content planning tools are broken. Keyword planning tools particularly are broken. And it doesn't really matter whether we're looking at keyword planning tools that are machine-led or whether we're looking at keyword planning tools that are human-led. They don't really work. If we go to content planning tools or keyword planning tools, traditionally, what they do is they look at keyword volumes, they look at keyword variations, and they really don't look at context. So the keyword volume information doesn't really help if you're looking up the word Mustang. You know, there's no concept of whether that's for a horse or whether that's for a car, or whether it's for an aeroplane. If you're looking at keyword, it comes up with all these keyword variations that are really the same thing, just with an S or with ing on the end of it, and variations of the same word. That doesn't really help us. Or they come up with suggestions of words that you just would never use in your business, synonyms that are irrelevant, possibly. Or more importantly, particularly to Stephen's question at the end, they suggest things for stuff that your business just doesn't do. And that's because they're all out of context. And I think that this is a real problem. So keyword planning tools, particularly, are not working very, very well. And it doesn't really matter if you put away all the machines and start to go to humans and you start brainstorming with content planning. Because when you do that, you tend to have human bias coming in. So you think of things from within your organization, not from the point of view of possibly your audience, your wider audience. So you come up with creative ideas to get around that. So you might use something like Edward de Bono's lateral thinking puzzle, where you sort of throw an orange into the loop and say, right, let's try and think up keywords and ideas that involve the word orange. But that sends people away from what search is designed to do, which is to narrow a user's focus to the thing that they want to get. If you start creating things out of the blue, then you are actually working against that idea of getting the user to the content that they want to find. Or another tool that you might use as a human is mind maps, which you think are very, very dynamic in nature. But actually, when you put a mind map together, it creates actually quite a linear systems. You end up with websites like this where you're kind of talking about, your navigational structure, really. So if you've got a DIY site, you're talking about parts, and then you've got screws, nails, and washers, and then power tools, and you've got them, and then bent and hand tools, etc. And they're all very linear, and it's kind of typical sort of design as a site, but doesn't really work to the way in which we want to develop our keywords and our content. And this has some implications for the web and for our businesses. This inability to create relevant keywords, the ones that you need to write about in the right context at the right time, has a huge number of problems. At a macro level, Google is seeing loads and loads of websites, and we've all done it if we've been in SEO long enough, that are creating duplicated, uninspiring, repetitive content. A good example is you do plumbing calls in Daytona and Ohio and California and New York, and then just have a page on every single one of those towns. And really, it's the same sort of content, exactly the same, uninspiring, repetitive. And that creates a massive amount of volume that Google has to crawl. And I think that is one of Google's biggest problems after lawsuits. But leaving Google aside for a second, it's also got huge implications for us, micro implications for us as businesses, because it doesn't really tell us when we need to create a new web page or when does a topic warrant enough need for our business to create multiple pages for us to be able to be seen as an authority around that topic. Or when do we delete a page that doesn't have value to our business specifically? It may have value to somebody in the world, but maybe not to our business. So when do you delete? When do you augment? And when do you need to start creating things from scratch? Keyword planning tools don't really do that at the moment. And that's what I want to talk about a bit today, because I think when I wrote Murder Mysteries, I tied ideas together in threads, in stories. So I would tie a murder mystery together by connecting dots. And I want you to think of your content in terms of connected scenarios, with the magic being in how you connect those ideas into topic clusters, because that is what's going to take you out of just writing around keywords and starting to connect those topics and ideas together. And there are a huge amount of things out there that have looked at modeling topics and modeling ideas. So there were a lot of algorithms out there around connecting topics through words. So things like LDA, LSI, and N-grams, particularly N-grams for Google, are all methods for crawling large amounts of data, i.e. the internet, and connecting ideas. But they were all keyword focused and not topic focused. So later on, people came out with something like TF-IDF and topical page rank, which is something that Google doesn't talk about very much, but something that they had. And these are topic based, but there's been a lot of work around trying to model topics and see what topics are semantically close to each other. What's interesting is that nobody agrees on what a topic is. And so there was this study in 2019, which looked at, I think it was 64 different market research papers, all about topic modeling in marketing. So you might think that topic modeling is a new phrase to marketing, but there are already 64 research papers about topic modeling in marketing back in 2019. And this meta study kind of looked at all of those and tried to find commonality. And what it came out with was all 64 papers were really using pretty much different definitions of what a topic was. And this is a challenge for us in the search industry, in the content industry, because unless we can all agree on a common definition of a topic, then every time anybody comes out with some research, they end up with different underlying data, and it doesn't really work. And this is where entities come in. This is why entities are so important from my perspective. So I want to spend a couple of seconds on explaining the difference between entities and topics and keywords. Keywords are things like, any way to describe any kind of topic. It's words, really. But a topic is quite a specific thing. So a topic, let's take the Eiffel Tower. When you see the Eiffel Tower, you know the Eiffel Tower. You know that it's that big metal thing in Paris. It doesn't matter if you say Eiffel Tower, La Tour Eiffel, or show a picture of it. It's all the same thing. Now, what you need in order to make topic modeling really work is have a single definition of where the truth is for that thing. So we use, at Inlinks, we use Wikipedia because it's an independent source of data. So an entity for us is the Wikipedia entry for the Eiffel Tower. Now, I admit there's one in English and one in French, but it's got a database that explains exactly what the entity is. And what's really important is that it's not us that builds out that database. Because if I was trying to, as an SEO, optimize through entities, and I controlled the underlying definition of entities, the very first thing I do is make Dixon Jones an entity and break the system. And that's what SEOs do. We're very good at breaking shiny objects. So we need a third-party system to say, this is what an entity is. Wikipedia is great because it's open source, but you could use, the Oxford English Dictionary or Webster's. Google has its own knowledge graph, of course. And these entities are basically records in a big database that will explain one entity, but you could have many topics that are referring to the same entity, but you can certainly have many, many keywords that refer to multiple topics as well. But an entity is in a database. And I want you to write your content on websites and think about your content in the same way that I write about murder mysteries. So when I used to write my murder mysteries, I would have a newspaper that everyone had. And that would be kind of like the front page of the website, really. It'd be the flavor of the day. Then I'd have a cast list because every guest at our murder mysteries was a character in the plot. So everybody was a character. So it's kind of like your sitemap. Just a little bit of information about everyone that's there. And then we had each person had their own character, and it's a page of A4. So think of it as a page of information on your blog, for example. But your character had all sorts of different plots. So Linda Lovelace knew something about the vicar knew something about the police officer, and the police officer knew something about the Lord. And they kind of had lots of different subplots within there that explained what their motivation was for the evening. Topic modeling is like having a rounded murder mystery plot because each of those characters dips into multiple plots. They don't just talk about themselves. They have to know about other people in order for the game to work, in order for information to flow. Each subplot has a kind of little focus, and it may or may not have its own web page or character, but the plot has a focus that involves lots of the characters or lots of pages in the analogy. And knowing the subplot helps to solve the larger plot. And I want people to write their content connecting dots in that kind of way. In other words, I want people to model topics for content through entities by doing three things. Firstly, I want you to create a database of entities on your website, things that you're talking about on your website. So we're going from the esoterical analogy here to the factual stuff. I want to create a database of entities on your website. What is your business already talking about? Page by page, if you can, and then build out a map of all the things that you're talking about. And then you can throw all these topics into something like Google Suggest or Also Asked or Keyword Insights. Inlinks does this for you. So Inlinks will throw all of these ideas and these topics into Google Suggest, and it will generate new ideas, new keyword suggestions, if you like, based on the ones that you've already talked about. So what we're doing differently here is we're not coming up with a keyword suggestion plan based on volumes of people that are talking about things on the web. We're coming out with keyword ideas and suggestions that are semantically close or extrapolations to your existing business. So you model the topics and throw them out. If you're going to throw them into Google Suggest, then what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of things coming back that are semantically long way from your business. So if you start with Mustang, some of the things about are going to be how much do you buy a Mustang for? And then another one is how do you tame a Mustang? And one's going to be horse related and one's going to be car related. So you've got to remove the ones that are not semantically close or relevant. And then you can model your topic through entities. So the thing that you do third is you take that output and you create topic clusters. So you find clusters of concepts that are related to each other, so that you are not just writing a page about this, a page about this, a page about this. You're writing about a group of ideas, and so you're going to get a database of ideas. So why is this different? Why is this different? That's the conceptual bit of how you do it. But this way is built on developing your business. It also removes human bias as well, and it connects concepts and helps you go deeper into where you need to go. Importantly, also, it avoids too much repetition. It should avoid that problem of writing about the same thing 5 different times with slightly different keywords that you're trying to optimize for. It should be very much topic focused. So let me take an example. So team building games and murder mysteries was a version of team building games. So I took a popular keyword tool and out is spat a huge number of volumes around different phrases here, and the intent is very, very narrow. It's informational, commercial, transactional, these kind of things. That it's whereas for me, intent is not about that at all, and we'll see in a couple of slides why we're a million miles away from commercial, informational, that kind of idea. We've got a bunch of keywords and a bunch of keyword volumes and some keyword difficulty. So the spreadsheet is well known. We've probably all seen these. It's a well-known sort of output, but it's not really in context. So when you start writing about that, you are going to be writing fixed pages. But what I want to do is you come up with websites that are a bit like this, basically, where you've got your parts and your screws and your nails, and you've got a page on screws and a page on nails and a page on washers, and then a section on a pillar page on power tools and saws and drills. That's not how we, as human beings, understand content. We listen to stories. We want to take in concepts and ideas, a bit more of a tumbleweed sort of idea where, you hear a story and it threads through the different ideas. So instead of talking about screws, you're talking about problems that people want to fix, how to hang a door on a wall, for example. So going back to team building games, if I type team building games into Google in the UK, you can see how Google is starting to move away from understanding individual pages and really trying to do 2 things. It doesn't like that I've typed in team building games. The first thing it's done here on this screen is it says, hey user, who are you? Are you asking for team building games for adults, for work, for students, for kids? It's trying to narrow it down. Team building games is too broad as a concept for Google to come back with meaningful information. I found this really interesting when I saw this here. And then even if you're not going to do that, it's going to give you I've expanded this, so it's taken up the whole page, but it gives you a bunch of examples of team building games, scavenger hunts, escape rooms, murder mysteries are in there. So Google is saying, firstly, I need to know your audience before I can do anything here. And secondly, team building games is very generic. And I think you actually want a team building game. You don't want the concept of team building games. You've got to dive into something a little bit more specific here. And these are very topic focused ideas. What we're trying to do moving forward with topic modeling is to create a system based on the principles of understanding your website, extrapolating your website topics and concepts, taking more ideas from Google or Suggest or other data sources to extrapolate from your existing ideas to come up with a topic plan that is going to cluster ideas into sensible suggestions. So around the concept of team games, for example, we've got a volume of how many people might be talking about team building games, but maybe we want to write about 10 pages in there and we've only written 2 of them. So what we're trying to do is to automate this process, very manual process of diving in, finding out what are the gaps in your topic knowledge. What do you need to write about to complete the circle of writing all the things that are relevant to your business, but nothing more. But nothing more, because anything more starts to dilute the authority in the things that you want to be authoritative in. And then saying, right, okay, we want to write about team building games, then basically we need this stuff about outdoors, or we need this stuff about a subtopic of youth games, games for youth, for example. So we're saying, right, you can see on the right-hand side here, our topics, our subtopics within the concept of team building games maps quite nicely the audience that we had here at the top of this slide here. We got for adults, for work, for students, for kids, online. And the way that we ended up coming out, we came out youth, kids, ideas, outdoor, employees, etc. Zoom, because obviously people were doing a lot of things during COVID, and so Zoom ends up as a subtopic as well. So we're trying to create concepts that are extrapolating from the original idea. So if we go back to a more traditional example of the DIY site, it means that when we can start writing content, we want to not just write a page about screws, a drill, paint, putty, whatever it is. What we want to do is write a story that solves a problem. So, for example, we might want to take the story about hanging a door. How do you hang a new front door? And you might talk about drills within that. You might talk about masonry holes and raw plugs and drill bits. And in doing so, you connect a story that makes it obvious to a machine that you are an authority on choosing the drill. Of course, you are going to need landing pages. You're going to need a landing page for the drill. You're going to need a landing page for the for the raw plugs. So you do want to say, right, okay, this screenshot here is around keto diets, for example. So within keto diets, we want to talk about things like best diets, diets for beginners, and diet pills, for example. They are sub-pages of the concept of keto diets. But protein suddenly becomes a totally different pillar page. It's got large amounts of volume, but it's really related to protein drinks and keto in relation to protein drinks. So you end up with a different pillar based on the volume. So what we can do is take the relevancy of the term and the search volume of the term and the clustering of the term to see what we should be writing next and whether it should be a new page, a new pillar page, or just an extension to an existing page, and you just put a paragraph in about a particular topic. And this is a different approach that I think is great. Now, it's different, and I've talked about my process in an abstract way, but the takeaway is not anywhere near so abstract. The takeaway is really this. So if you're not a murder mystery context kind of person, this is the dry version of what I've just tried to say. Cluster topics as an extension of your current business and your content. I don't want you to cluster it around keyword volumes, but in terms of your existing business. Then I want you to make the topics answer questions and solve problems like hanging a door. And then I want you to define pillar pages for a topic and then create sub pages off of that topic. But you connect them up with stories, which is why you need a blog. Pillar pages are all about topics that are most important to your business. A subtopic has enough volume to create a new page, but if a subtopic has really low volume, then I would just make it an H2 or an H3 paragraph of a pillar or a subpage. So what you're trying to do is not create millions and millions of pages. You're covering your bases, you're doing it once, and you're doing it right. We've got a few other bits and pieces here. A page can be a pillar page for one topic, and at the same time, it can be a subtopic for another pillar page. Now, that's a bit of a long-winded way of saying something, but you can essentially have a page about Mustang cars, and that can still talk about electric engines versus gas engines, and they can link through to the engine page and to the electrics page. And that's absolutely fine. I think there's a feeling amongst the SEO industry that, you've always got to link into your pillar pages and never out of them. And that's a big mistake because the world isn't like that. Somebody can be an expert in one thing and comment about another thing. And it's the same in content on the web. And so internal links complete that referencing between pillar pages and subtopic pages. So internal linking makes those links, makes those connections exactly like the murder mystery plots do. And they tie everything together so that a search engine can eventually understand what it is that you're an expert in. Another way to say it, if you want color in your content, then the big terms at the top need authority at the root. Get the base topics right, get the underlying topics right, and then you're going to be able to rank for the bigger terms. That's kind of what I've got. If you would like a copy of your own topic wheel, then feel free to email me on this address, preferably fairly soon, and mention search engine rankings so that I know which presentation it was.
Thank you so much, Dixon. It's always great to be able to hear you go through these key concepts. You've taught me for a number of years, and I, in turn, have taught my own team the steers towards entities and not keywords as the golden chalice. So you got to reverse this all around and be able to create your own murder mystery on your own website. Thank you very much for the classic scenes as well. We got a couple questions here. Well, Stephen Grails asked a question here. Dixon, how do you spot emerging subtopics in your niche early and build authority on them before competition catches on? I think that's one of the key elements of being aggressive at building authority and seeing that it's very topical and trending in nature. So how do you go about going after that?
You know what I do right now? I'm going to get hated for saying this. I'm going to get hated for saying this. So I've been looking at all the LLMs out there and testing them against each other. And I've got a little survey I'm doing on dixonjones.com. If anyone wants to jump in and just look at 6 different LLMs together and see which one they think is best, then I'll tell them which one it is. But for Stephen's question, I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but it's a new way to do it. Grok is X's LLM. Now, the thing about Grok, it's not the best. However, it uses Twitter's live information. So probably I would consider looking at Grok, which you can get in you got to pay for your blue dot bit, and you get Grok in your Twitter, whatever it's called, I think. Yeah. But if you ask Grok what's emerging, then it literally will come out with interesting things that have happened in the last 24 hours. So to Stephen's point, I would say it's a pretty good place to go to come out with concepts, but it's not connected to what I was suggesting we should do in the presentation, because in the presentation, I think you should do what's semantically close to your existing business. If you want to start writing about something that you don't do as a business, you will fall down. You need to do the thing. You've got to walk the walk before you talk the talk. So if you just went to X and did that on Grok, you'd get some great ideas, but you wouldn't necessarily get pounds and dollars and cents in your back pocket at the end of that, because you haven't got a product to back it up that you can charge people for.
And you haven't built a foundation of entities inside your site. So those are going to be subtopics of key foundational entities, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, you've got to follow the money, and SEOs are really bad at following the money. It's kind of like we're happy to get our rankings going up, and then if we're really feeling advanced, we're happy to get the click and count the clicks, and then we can count the conversions maybe. But really, it's all about the pounds and pence in the customer's pocket. So we've got to know what the business model is and just not deviate too far from that.
Roger that. Ron's got a question for you as well. With search engines placing more focus on topic clusters, what tools or techniques do you recommend for identifying content gaps within a specific subject? I was going to ask that same question.
Okay, so the way that we do it at InLinks is that we first build a knowledge graph of your own website. So literally. That's the thing I was going to like the saying, if you want to get one, I'll send you a topic wheel and of all the things that you're talking about on your own website. And it takes seconds if you've got an account in InLinks. If you want to do it by the page, there's a free tool. You don't even need to log in. Go to inlinks.com, go to the free tools and look for the tool on it. And it'll go through a page and it'll show you all the topics on that page. But what we do is then do it at the site level, or 100 pages of the site. We will usually cover all the important stuff. Then we take that data set, and then we throw it into Google Suggest and see what they're throwing out. And then that comes back with these topic clusters, and we can see which topic clusters are semantically close. And that's what gives us the gap. The things you've already written about and the things that are semantically close. And there's the gap of the things that you're missing. And that's exactly what the topic planner in InLinks is trying to do. It's sometimes a bit of a learning curve, but even when we did it, we thought we were doing a good job of planning our content. And it turns out I haven't got a page on SEO tools. That's a pretty basic finding, really. So it's amazing that you see your gaps when you actually stop trying to do it yourself and allow a machine to fill it in.
Absolutely. It's a great resource. It really is. And it'll take you down a few rabbit holes too. Oh, wow. I did mention this. Oh,
that is a problem. And I'm trying to bring you the action there. We've just introduced some prioritization to try and prioritize it as well. So these are the things you should do first. But it's a mind something or other. Yeah.
All right. Lastly, Diego actually has a question for you as well. Hey, Dixon, thanks for the classic slides. Are backlinks essential for building topical authority, or should we be prioritizing on internal linking and content structure instead? That's a great question.
That's a good question. And of course, I am biased because I have such a history with Majestic, which is an absolute goldmine for looking at backlink data. But I will be absolutely honest with you. I think that the word backlinks is probably overused. The word citation is underused. Yeah. In other words, what you really need is for your brand to be quoted in context in the right place. So if you get backlinks or mentioned in things that are totally irrelevant to your business model, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because a machine is going to say, let's say you've got a link from, or a link from a comic site, Snoopy, and it's linking to your website about investment. All of a sudden there's going to be this investment company is about comics, and it's just going to mess with your head. Now, mostly that's not going to matter, because a machine is going to need quite a lot of convincing to say this website is about this. So it's going to need several citations, multiple citations, with some reinforcement from different locations. But a backlink is a form of citation. You don't have to have a backlink, though. What you need is your brand to be mentioned. It could be mentioned in a video. It could be mentioned in the right context, hopefully in the right flavor. So I think a backlink is a subcategory of a citation, and I think it's citations that are important.
Expand your brand, get your brand mentioned out there with link or not link, but have your brand plus context creates that knowledge graph beyond your own site. And that's that reinforcing agent right there.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic, Dixon. Thank you so much for the presentation. And this deck will also be shared after the live stream. Huge fans over here, Dixon, as you well know. And we certainly appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. And thanks to the SEO ranking as well.
We have our expert panel, the state of AI overviews in 2024, research insights, and future forecasts. And if I could, I would like to have everybody introduce themselves, leading with Anastasia. Give us a little bit of history of who you are and where you've come from in SEO.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Anastasia, and I'm leading the SEO organic direction here at SEO Ranking. So, and having around 8 years of experience with SEO. Right now, I feel that it's really important for us as an SEO company, and for me as an SEO specialist, to really keep an eye on the AI overviews. And that's why I really want to talk about this particular subject today. And I'm really excited for this.
Fantastic. Itamar, how are you doing, sir?
All good, thank you. All good. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Itamar Blauer, Senior SEO Director at Studio Hawk, which is an SEO agency based out of Australia and the UK. And in terms of how long I've been doing stuff, well, digital marketing I've pretty much done since I was 9 years old. So it's been quite a long time. And then sort of moving specifically into the SEO industry for a while, but I've not been an SEO and nowhere near as long as Barry, our next guest as well. So I'll let him talk a bit about.
And this guy right here, Barry Swartz, we all know this guy, right? 41,000 articles, 21 years of SC Roundtable. I'm just going to run ahead because I just wanted to congratulate you, Barry, on that. But what don't we know about you, sir?
Oh, good question. I'm the one that talks the talk. I don't walk the walk, as Dixon was saying. So, I write a lot. I don't call myself an SEO, but I guess by definition, anybody who writes anything on the internet is a SEO. And I love talking about search. So I know you got some really good, interesting AI data on Google AI overviews and other things. So looking forward to this chat.
That's a great segue. Thank you so much, Barry. Anastasia, I wanted to actually tee that up to you because SE Ranking has been doing a number of research and analyses on AI overviews since the display of that in April of 2024. So give us a picture of what you guys have been studying over there.
Yeah, actually, we started our research process like back in January, but we started doing this like seriously when after the official SG AI overviews rollout. Yeah, and right now we have data for like the summer period and versus this autumn November period. And as for now, like as of November 2024, we see that around 20% of keywords that we track, and we track a lot, it's about around 100K of keywords, that these keywords, 20% of these keywords trigger AI overviews. And this data is like almost the same in the US and in the UK. I can say it's a huge increase compared to the August data when we saw around 12% of AI overviews in SERPs. And this can show us these dynamics, and this can also help us to make some conclusions and make some predictions based on this data.
Excellent. Well, that's a huge jump from 12% to 20% in the order of three months there. So you had a lot of predictions. You also had a lot of industry-specific subpoints in there. Can I ask one question? You've observed a strong correlation between longer, more detailed search queries and the likelihood of triggering AI overviews. They sometimes resemble prompts rather than those traditional search phrases, right? So how should SEOs approach keyword research and optimization for these new prompt environments that we're finding ourselves in? Itamar, I'll toss it to you real quick.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting when you think about how people have changed in terms of their behaviors. So like search behaviors, we've sort of seen a shift ever since OpenAI sort of, I think, initiated this shift in search behavior of people utilizing prompts as opposed to more traditional search queries that we've seen. So I think even looking into the data of what we found and in this research as well, I think it was quite interesting also to mention the methodology here, because it's like you took 20 different types of industries, took about 5,000 keywords in each. So you've got a nice sort of sample there, hence the 100,000 keywords in total. And what it seems to me from just anecdotally looking at the study here is we sort of saw in the beginning the sort of Google's hand being forced into trying to at least provide some kind of experience that almost not exactly matched, but also gave a similar sort of vibe to what OpenAI and ChatGPT was providing. And then we saw Perplexity, Claude, all these other types of LLMs, and some of them evolved further into using RAGs and just how they actually found this information. But it seems as if like what we're seeing to now nearing 20% usage, we're sort of seeing at the beginning, Google was like, okay, we've released this new feature, so let's roll it out as much as we can. And obviously this was primarily within the US before sort of it branched out a bit into the UK, for example, where I'm based. What we actually saw is in the early days, it was actually pretty terrible for a lot of types of searches or prompts that people were putting in. The information was either incorrect or the sources that it pulled the information from were incorrect. And then you sort of see within the data after a couple months, it's like, okay, rolled back quite significantly. And then what we're seeing now is actually there's higher instances of AI overviews than the initial sort of launch or within the search lab sort of earlier this year. So maybe confidence has gone up now from Google's perspective, and things are changing very, very quickly as well. So even for me trying to test stuff, I'm like, I'm having a tough time trying to figure out, what's going on, what's improved, what hasn't. Because, I gave a few talks earlier this year and a lot of them were specifically with AI overviews and how terrible they were. But now I'm like, actually, you know what? They've kind of improved. So like fair play for Google being able to do that. But it just feels like it kind of feels like a bit of an arms race. But you'd expect, a behemoth like Google to be able to at least carry quite a decent amount of leverage or be able to at least improve things relatively quickly compared to its counterparts.
Yeah. And for somebody who's watching the SERPs, literally daily. Barry's reporting on this on a regular basis. Barry, how should website owners interpret the fluctuations of AI overviews presence in search? Because you report on all sorts of search features on a regular basis. Do you believe that the higher number of AI overviews in SERPs maybe implies a longer term trend of declining organic traffic to websites? Double-edged question there. I'll take the first one.
No, you're wrong. I'm leaving. I'm insulted. No, I think everybody expected it to show up more and more often as Google became more confident. Initially, Google was super confident. They launched with, I thought when they initially launched, way too many times that AI overviews came up in the actual Google search results. Then they got called out for all sorts of fun examples. Drinking urine while swallowing stones or something. I don't know. Lots of different examples. And it was pretty embarrassing for Google. Google rolled it back a little bit, rethought things, and now slowly is pushing, like you said, according to the study, from like 10% to 20% or so, depending on what data you read. It's good to see Google start to have more confidence in this and in a slow, gradual way, as opposed to how they actually went ahead and initially rolled it out. And it keeps getting better. I think, I kind of like, people in the SEO industry kind of like named it the Ray update with the latest Google AI overview stuff, because she was one of many who were calling out really bad examples, pushing Google to do better. But ultimately, I think this is like feature snippets roll out. I mean, I don't think you remember the back in the day when Google started to roll out these feature snippets, and there were so many embarrassing examples of how it was giving you wrong information, embarrassing information, dangerous information. It was literally like the same rollout, but obviously Google search wasn't as prominent as it was back then that it is now. And of course, they didn't have this level of competition with OpenAI and Bing doing their Copilot stuff. So there was a lot more eyeballs on what Google was doing, because there was no such thing as feature snippets anywhere else. There was tons of people doing AI chat and bots and so forth in a very, very visible way. So Google had a lot more views on that. And ultimately, I think when it came to like the feature snippets, we saw the same thing with Google, and you see them a lot, and they do a pretty good job now. I think Google's going to continue to roll them out and continue to get better, and we will be more confident in those results. And I think the results will get better and better. They're not going to be perfect. Even now, we can find examples of feature snippets that are wrong or make no sense. And I think even Google, when they wrote that blog post about it, they cited some examples of like that I covered of the feature snippets going wrong and getting better. That being said, I think ultimately SEOs are going to be like, and publishers and content creators and brands are going to want to be in those AI overviews if that's what's shown up first. Even though they might send less traffic. I know we ended that conversation with Dixon about brands, and everybody's talking about brands these days. You want your brand to be mentioned in there. And that's the ultimate goal here. Is I think Rand Fishkin just came out with SparkToro data around it's the brands. All this stuff is about brand marketing. So I think ultimately you're going to want to go ahead and test these AI overviews to make sure that whatever comes up for related queries that you're searching for, that maybe you want your brand to show up there. And how could you get your brand to show up there? Even if it's not a link, which often they are now links, Google's pushing more and more links in there. I think brand mentions are going to be very, very important there. And I think ultimately SEOs who don't show up there are going to be wondering, how do I get my clients to show up in there?
Yep, absolutely. And the fear that feature snippets actually engendered that we were going to be losing a heck of a lot of search traffic, that kind of blew by the wayside as well. And we're predicting that this is going to be the same type of scenario here, is that there is a zero-click concept here that has been discussed, but brand and authority that's happening inside AI overviews is certainly going to be affecting any of the organic visibility that a client has and trustworthiness of that website as well. I got a question for you, Anastasia. You actually did some research on the links that the sites that are actually coming up in AI overviews, and you had some data there. How much? What's the percentage of the links in AI overviews that are matching the top 100 ranking sites?
We have a lot of data here. And I'll start with the fact that on average, an AI snippet has 6 to 7 links in it. So these are chances for websites to be visited, to be clicked at. And as for the sources, we see that around 90% of websites are listed both in the AI snippet and in the regular search. And it is at least one link. But I guess a more interesting fact is that around 60% of the websites that appear in the AI overviews snippet also rank in the top 10 results. I guess it's an interesting topic to cover, because knowing this, we can assume that websites that already have some traffic from the regular organic SERPs will probably continue to be getting this traffic. And at the same time, some websites that do not rank in the top 10 results right now can have more chances to be visible within these AI results.
Have we seen the loss of an actual organic position kind of consumed by AI overviews? That's a jump ball for anybody. Have you seen that behavior happening? Or is it established that there's some permanence now in the organic listings that wasn't before?
So I don't think a listing would be removed. I think there were some cases with feature snippets where Google would do deep duplication and change over the years where they don't want the same URL to show up multiple times in the search results. And that was on and off for feature snippets here and there. I think with AI overviews, we haven't seen deduplication of the same URL yet.
That's fantastic. And that's a confidence builder because that was arguably some thoughts when we were looking at it in SGE and the lab test that some things were actually disappearing as AI overviews were being tested. I do have a question about the shift of some of the intent of the AI overviews. Are you seeing AI overviews affecting the balance between informational and transactional queries? Are there any notable shifts in user behavior or conversion rates that businesses should be aware of? Or are we able to track conversion rates from AI overviews yet?
I'm not sure we can track this data because as we all know, we won't have a direct data source for this kind of data because Google Search Console won't show us data for these particular URLs, for this particular snippets. What we can do, we can track the keywords and we can see what keywords are listed, what keywords trigger the AI overviews, and for what keywords we have our URLs, our website being present. And you can do this with SEO ranking as well. And then you can track these keywords and you can match this data with your Google Search Console data, like matching the positions, your keywords, your URLs, and your actual traffic data from Google Search Console, and then somehow apply your conversion rate on this traffic to see if anything has changed or it remains the same. This is the way I see we can do this kind of analysis, but maybe it might have a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems very manual at this moment in time. And I'd imagine it will get easier further down the line in terms of, having the right sort of toolkit to know exactly how you're being impacted by these. I think the interesting shift that I've seen, and that sort of is mentioned in the study, is that we're seeing more and more longer tail types of queries trigger AI overviews. And it makes you think, it's like, well, okay, if we're taking queries that have, maybe 4 words or longer, they're more long tail, they're searched for less, so the search volume is going to be lower, which actually means there's probably less money that Google needs to spend in terms of actually, processing power and actually getting these results to show up. So maybe that's a reason why Google is more comfortable sort of showing AI overviews for queries that by nature may require more nuance, because the longer your search is, there's going to be more specific types of details, the more words you're including in there, which kind of tallies itself quite nicely to show that. I think that it's definitely more informational search focused in terms of the intent of the search query, as opposed to a more transactional or commercial or something where you're trying to purchase an item. I think we saw earlier on this year where there were some really just bad results when it came to specific like transactional types of searches. In terms of even the sources, we've seen a shift with that. It's like, it'll be really interesting to see the shift of, there were lots of sources that were shown several months back where it's like the actual domain or the actual page itself either was broken, it was a parked domain. There were examples where the actual content wasn't anywhere on the page within the source. And you're thinking, well, how did that even happen? So, we are seeing just so many changes in such a short amount of time that I'm not confident we're going to be able to get any sort of automated levels of tracking this for at least the next 6 months based on just what we've seen, because there's just so much happening. But like Anastasia is saying, it's like, yeah, things are a lot more manual. There may be ways to sort of look for correlations and be able to do some guesswork and take multiple data sources and try and piece together the puzzle, but we're not going to have anything out of the box that would make our lives as SEOs easier to be able to report on this stuff for the time being.
that also brings up another factor of just the emergence of paid ads inside of AI overviews. That instability right now puts a number of advertisers at concern, because your ad could very well show up next to something that you did not want to actually be associated to. So we're not seeing that activation collectively yet. I think Barry reported on that as well recently. It's being tested out in a number of areas. Do you know the percentage of ads that we're seeing right now collectively in any studies with AI overviews right now? Any takes on that?
Well, I think in the study they said the SEO ranking study, the number of cases where ads appear alongside AI overview fluctuated throughout the year, with the latest study showing about 8.77%. Now, there's also something about the ads in the UK with 34%. Now, I don't know if that specifically looks at the ads on the page in total. I think it does, because like a lot of people confuse ads with AI overviews, meaning ads above or below the AI overviews or on the side. Ads in the AI overviews are super rare to see. Google's been really, really cautious about testing it. So I doubt it's that 8.77%, probably under 1%, in my opinion. I don't have a study on that, but it's very rare to actually see ads directly in the AI overview snippet itself, enclosed in that box.
I think it was like a recent report within the last couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken, that's been seen in the wild.
I mean, the SE rankings is, I haven't seen the study, but I mean, it could be, but there are some people who are seeing it in the wild. And Ginny Marvin, the Google ad liaison, said, we're being very cautious about how basically you roll it out. Or did she say something specifically? I don't remember the actual quote. I remember hearing her on stage at Brighton SEO, where she said, you are going to see it. We are testing it and it is rolling out, but they're being very cautious about it. So I don't think you'll see it that often. And if you do, you're lucky. And then send me a screenshot so I can add it to fast.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to pivot here for a second and give a little bit of insight, or a question, I should say, towards some of the more sensitive topics that we're seeing AI overviews come up. We liken it to the YMYL stuff and being able to see AIO inside of medical advice, as well as legal advice and financial advice. Should we, as consumers, really want to push back on that until maybe AI is ready for that? Because we've seen a lot of misfires in that space. Ithamar, what are your thoughts about those more sensitive topics?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to get involved in terms of the number of sort of lawsuits and trouble that Google has been in recently. But I mean, if you're going to be using YML topics to show AI overviews, especially when the data is wrong, you're going to open yourself to all sorts of controversy, where somebody might end up losing their house and basically say, well, I got this information from Google's AI overviews, which was meant to be a, credible source of information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it is very, very dangerous. I think it's something that, unless you are confident, but then again, it's a question of who's going to be able to judge confidence? Is Google going to be able to take, objectivity in terms of what information on a page that it decides to pull out snippets from to display in AI overviews? How is it going to be able to even determine that? So I would be, pretty against that.
It's kind of like having a very confident friend. I mean, I think people need to think about these AI answer machines as friends. You ask your friend, I'm having heartburn. One person can be like, yeah, you're fine. Just eat more, hamburgers. The other person may say, you're having a heart attack. Go to the emergency room right now. And they're very confident in their answers. I think that's what AI overviews are kind of like. It's kind of like talking to somebody with a personality, oftentimes very opinionated about what their answer is going to be. And they don't give the disclaimer that, the person, your friend's not going to give you a disclaimer that we're experimental and, we could be wrong, whereas the AI overviews do. So it's interesting from the study, how often it shows up in these sensitive topics, almost 30% for legal topics, 18% for healthcare topics. And we haven't seen Google pull back much in those areas, which is, I really thought they would pull back a lot on that. And they're not. They're being confident in their results, and they're labeling them as, this is an AI overview and it might be wrong. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah, they kind of leaned into it, and the study of those different topics showed growth from one study to another study in the business and legal and medical environments. Anastasia, we talked about that a while back.
Yeah, it's growing a lot, and it seems that Google will just continue to do so. I guess Google makes itself safe by just adding the disclaimer, this is just for informational purpose, and this what makes this safe. I don't know, for Google. Also, we see that Google still links to trustworthy sources, like medical websites, like some governmental websites. And I guess this is also a way for Google to make it safer while expanding the results, the AI results.
And by the way, as we're talking about it, we'll flash the QR code at the end of this as well, because there's a QR code to actually hit the entire study that we're talking about. I failed to mention that before we kicked into the stream. Final pivot here is really talking about how to optimize for AI overview. It's too early and very unstable waters right now, but how should SEO strategies evolve to remain effective in the context of AI overview? Because it's not going away. It's growing more and more. And we could probably predict that it's going to go to 30 or 40% of searches in the next couple of years. Don't quote me on that. But how do we stay in that space?
It's quite an interesting one. And just because things are changing so quickly, I think the best thing you can do is just try to use your brain and reverse engineer what is happening and looking into sources to establish, okay, what is it about this particular source that's showing prominently? What does it have? How is the content structured? You can look further. You can look into the backlink profiles of the domain. You can look into the backlink specifically to that particular page. And so there's a lot of manual things, I think, at this moment in time that we're going to need to do because there is no clear answer and things are changing. I definitely don't think that there's going to be something revolutionary in terms of how people should approach their content and their websites to optimize their sites, generally speaking, across the board. And I think that even applies to the LLMs as well. I don't think there's anything revolutionary that needs to be done. But I think if you really want to get a better understanding of figuring out why certain results are as they are with AI overviews, it's a case of looking in your niche and trying to determine, okay, here's the types of searches that this is showing in. And obviously this is where the SE ranking study and other studies on this will be really helpful for you to sort of know where to pinpoint your focus, but actually just trying to reverse engineer and the old classic, puzzle solving methods of trying to figure out why certain things are happening and then test it yourself and experiment and try to do A/B tests and track things over time. That would be my biggest advice for this.
And explore who is actually being listed in those AI overviews and seeing what other topics they're actually talking about. Going back to Dixon's presentation about entities and topic knowledge, semantic knowledge there, you may very well see that there's more trustworthiness in that microsite or cluster of information on a site. Barry, I wanted to move into some predictions in 2025 because I know you're continually reporting and end of the year is always predictions. But when we come down to what skills may be important for SEOs in 2025, considering AI and other trends like this, what would you suggest to our audience?
Yeah, I mean, Itamar already said use a brain. I was going to argue don't use your brain. You don't need one. No, I'm just joking. There's AI that can replace it. So, we're all doomed basically. We should just give up right now. And I don't know why we're even doing this webinar. I'm just joking.
All right, there we go.
No, I think it's the main thing everybody's been saying is brand. That's the really thing you have to work on. It's interesting because most publishers these days are switching models. Even The Verge just announced they're going to a subscription model. They wouldn't do that if they're getting crazy traffic from Google. If their traffic was increasing and they were getting a lot more traffic, they can monetize that based off of ads and impressions. Everybody's getting less traffic from Google. In fact, I reported that my own website got 15% less traffic from search overall in the past year over year. But overall traffic, even with the 15% drop in search traffic, which was most of my traffic, I had a 5% increase in traffic. Why? Because of brands. I'm doing this webinar. Millions of people are watching this right now and asking, who is that fool that says don't use their brain? And they're Googling me and trying to find out more about Barry Schwartz. And Barry Schwartz that comes up is this professor that's much better looking than me and wrote a book about choice. So they can't find me. But I got to work on that. That being said, it's all about the brand. And I think the more you have to think about the brand when it comes to any of this stuff. Search is dwindling. People are in other places, and AI overviews are everywhere. And also AI search is everywhere. People are using ChatGPT as friends and having conversations with them. And I think in Japan and in certain countries, they're coming out with AI-based robots for to be boyfriends and girlfriends with. So the world's changing. And the beauty of our community in SEO, in the SEO world is we really absolutely love change. And we adapt to it really quickly. We embrace it. And we see that as an opportunity. So again, brand is important, but embrace the change. don't be like one of those people that says, I'm not going to use AI. It's horrible. I mean, I hear a lot of people in my community talking about it. It's the end of the world. I'm like, guys are going to be extinct in a few years if you don't do it. Try it, use it, and have fun with it.
Use it as a tool and don't push back. Yeah, absolutely. And we do, as SEOs, we do tend to complain about change, but we still do adapt, right? So there's that. All right. So with that, I do want to toss it over to Anastasia for her thoughts on how she sees, because she's been leading these studies over at SE Ranking. How do you see AI overviews evolving in the future based on the trends that you've been observing?
As I said, I do believe we will see more of AI overviews in search, and maybe we will see more of this trend of zero-click searches when people will find more information directly in the SERPs. But I guess this will lead to websites and content creators to create more bottom of the funnel content, like to cover more in-depth, more product or brand related topics that cannot be easily answered by the AI. And we'll need to create less like top of the funnel, really easy what is content. I guess the websites and the SEOs will adapt, and we will understand this technology and this new search more, and we will find like really effective solutions to get the traffic. I guess we will use more traffic channels in the future. Yeah, but still we will see more of AI in Google, and I guess we will see more traffic from other AI engines. For example, we see more traffic from ChatGPT and Perplexity this month and like this quarter in general. And I guess we will see more of like traffic from other sources, not only from Google, like it was before when you get like 95% of traffic from Google and that's all.
It'll be more diversified. We just saw our first lead come in for one of our clients from a ChatGPT referral, and I'm just itching to try to engineer back what was that citation? Where did it come from? And so here's reference, just dig through, find the questions that are being answered on that page, and you can start trying to find how this actually is being created. But boy, there's a big black box inside of LLMs that we can't get into yet that will be a source of traffic growing. It already is a growing source of traffic right now. Itamar, final thoughts, a thought towards the prediction of SEO in the next year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that taking what I think is going to happen is we're going to see, especially from mid to late 2025, there will be sort of year-on-year declines in Google Search Console for a lot of websites. And I think what they need to do is be better in terms of how they're reporting on overall traffic to their website. So very recent, literally yesterday, I put a LinkedIn post up sharing a Looker Studio dashboard that pretty much takes your website, you put in your data through GA4, and it will show you the traffic evolution over time from the most popular types of AI platform. So your Gemini's, ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. That's the sort of stuff that needs to be taken into account next year in terms of how SEOs are reporting on data to websites to be able to more accurately show that actually, like Barry and like Dixon, and what we're talking about here is brand and showing actually people are seeing you, but it's not highly concentrated. And as Stasia said, it's not 95% from Google search directly. So I think that from the Google search type traffic sources, we're going to see less of that next year, but it does mean that SEOs will need to be on their A game in terms of how to, I guess, as accurately as possible, report on a more holistic sort of traffic acquisition to your website.
Because they're answering questions and many more features and facets than Google search right now. And especially with the Search GPT that's also being released. I mean, you're gonna have a much more diversified portfolio of reference that users are actually experiencing. So thank you very much for your time today, folks. I really do appreciate the panel's contribution here. Hopefully we answered a lot of your questions, listeners and watchers, for AI overviews and the future of AI overviews in 2025. And hopefully we're giving some good SEO skills, guidance at least, to what you should be doing in 2025. Hey, we wish you all the best, our panelists, and thank you so much for playing. Appreciate it.